On this week's episode, are we in or Knives Out? Our thoughts on the best our thoughts on the best games of the decade, and what would you pay for a script to Star Wars 9? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, and the Lakers Fast Break podcast. Thank you so much for listening to all of our great programs. And if you really like what we do, we truly hope that you'll go ahead and take some time, just a moment of your time, just to go ahead and give us that 5-star review. You can put your questions or comments there, right there in the boxes to give us that 5-star review. And if you want, we'll even go ahead and give you a shout out on the show if you leave us a comment to do so. So we truly appreciate you doing it. In fact, we truly appreciate you listening to all of us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But right now, he's still away on Family Matters, aka he's just kicking back for Thanksgiving. It's Josh Peterson is just away right now. Just I know, kicking back, having some fun, doing stuff with the family and all that. But in his place, once again, is my good friend, the OG. One of the OGs, right? Again, the original gangsta of Game Source. You got to check out what he's doing today at Game Source on Facebook, YouTube, and all of his Twitch and other streaming channels. It is my good friend. Man, you've known me for way too long. I feel sorry for you. It is Jamie Monroy. What's up, man?
Hey, you can't feel sorry for me. I feel more sorry for you.
No.
Same could be said.
No.
I'm just glad the original, means original gangster, not, outlandish, overrated,
No.
G's could stand for so many different things.
No. It's me, my friend, because, I have the voice of champions, or so I have been told in no uncertain terms by the commenters out there that, they just love my voice so much. So big shout out to them, by the way. So we won't,
Golden
but that's,
voice.
Yeah.
Take
exactly.
that, people.
Yeah, take that indeed. But it is going to be a great episode we have for you out there. We're going to talk a little bit about the box office this weekend and a certain movie. Couldn't that be redemption for a certain director? We'll talk about that coming up in the episode. It looks like to be a Star Wars theme because that has a little bit of Star Wars into it. Plus also as well, we're going to be the guys from Topicocalypse will be stopping by later in the program to talk about Star Wars with all the news and stuff and their opinion on Star Wars Episode 9. Speaking of Star Wars Episode 9, how much would Jamie pay for a script to Episode 9? What is floating around out there in the wild? And we'll talk a little bit more about how they got out in the wild coming up here later in the program as well. Plus, Jamie has his thoughts on the video games of the decade and his list of the top 10 movies that he thinks is of all time. But first, my friend, it is another great weekend at the box office. Frozen 2 coming off that $130 million great performance here domestically and $350 million worldwide. It's on its way well over $500 million, and by the end of this coming weekend, could be even closer to $600 million or more worldwide, just raking it all in, and it's not letting it go, so to speak. So, in fact, I'll just stop the let it go more puns, from this point forward. So, but I want to ask you, my friend, the intrigue starts at number 2. There's a movie that came out this past Wednesday, as after we, when this show airs, and that is Knives Out, starring many great stars, including Chris Evans, one of his first movies that he's done post Captain America. You also have Christopher Plummer, Don Johnson, Jamie Lee Curtis. You have a Michael Shannon. You have a plethora of great stars, a nice cast, plus Daniel Craig as the sleuth who's trying to figure out who done it. And the reason why I'm saying this is so interesting, the reviews are very strong for a whodunit movie. It's being considered as an outside shot as possibly one of the best movies of the year for possible Oscar contention, all that. But it's the director that gets my interest because it's Rian Johnson, the man who could be crafting another trilogy for the Star Wars universe at some point down the line, which some may not, which some may like, and some may really not like. because the last movie he directed, The Last Jedi, was so polarizing, and also in retrospect probably didn't do as well as I'm sure Disney and Lucasfilm was hoping for, because the first movie, Star Wars The Force Awakens, did just over $2 billion at the box office. This did about $500 to $600 million less, which I don't think is the direction you want the series to go in. And with Solo, it took an even deeper dive, but that's another story altogether. So I ask you, my friend, is this a true redemption story for Rian Johnson? And in some small way will help him reestablish himself as a good director and someone that Hollywood and of course Lucasfilm can count on to put a good show on once again.
Let me start by saying first, you took the words out of my mouth. It was definitely, this movie definitely put the whodunit back in those movies. It was more of a revival of the whodunit genre, and honestly, a really great, it was clever, really just done really well. And I think that could be a very big shout out to a huge stamp on the resume saying, here, if I can do this, just think what I could do with that. So hopefully a good step in the right direction. Hopefully it wasn't a, one and done. I didn't just get lucky. I don't think this was luck. This is honestly done very well. So I think we can see big things happening. Hopefully that trust level is there. I honestly think it's a really big mark on the resume saying I can do this.
I can do this, man. I can do it. But I tell you what, it just is kind of, I don't know, it's interesting because, of course, when he's going out for interviews, all they're going to ask him is, oh, but yeah, by the way, what's going on with Star Wars? Oh, by the way, what happened with The Last Jedi? Or I call it Star Wars: The Last Retcon, because it just basically wiped out everything that J.J. Abrams did pretty much in the first one. But I don't know, man, and with J.J. Abrams now in the Star Wars Episode 9, rumored to be retconning everything that he retconned in The Last Jedi. So, it's going to be funny to see how that all plays out. But it's interesting to see after that kind of mixed reaction, which is very divisive. I mean, I've not seen this type of divisiveness in a Star Wars film at all, ever. I mean, most people do not like the prequels. Sorry, Jay Bartlett, but most people do not like the prequels. And they're pretty much unison on that one. And most people like and enjoy and love the first three movies that were produced out there. But when it comes to what was done in The Last Jedi, this has been very divisive, to say the least, as far as everything that was changed, everything that was done. And to me, at this point in time, when you in 2 years of interviewing people about it, it seems like you either love it or hate it. Josh is just really can't stand it. Ron McCallum, Jay Bartlett seem to be on the fence that, okay, they enjoyed it and they liked it for what it was. I'm just like, after all is said and done, because it had really great highs and it had really very low lows. And I'm talking some of the lowest points in Star Wars movies as far as watchability is concerned. It was like, it turned out to me for B to be just to be like, it was like a all right movie at best. So I ask you, my friend, with all that said and done, I mean, do you think that it's time to go ahead and just move on from The Last Jedi and to go ahead and allow Rian Johnson to go ahead and enjoy his current success with Knives Out? Because it looks like it's going to do pretty solid, about possibly even 20-25 million, but it's not a high budget movie, so it doesn't really have to go ahead and overproduce that much.
No, it only had a $40 million budget. So
yeah, so it only had a $40 million budget. You're right. Thank you for noting that. And then so it only really has to do, about $100 million worldwide, a little bit more than that, maybe, to go ahead and, turn a nice profit for the film studios. So that, I think, is easily done, because whodunits, the Orient Express, Murder on the Orient Express, Kenneth Branagh's film, that did way above expectations, even though it got okay reviews. This is getting better reviews. And I'll tell you what, I think this is going to be a good sign for Rian Johnson, because I think this movie is going to do, fairly well when all is said and done at the box office.
I agree. I see this movie doing very well. Should that be held against anything else? It's like you said, it's always going to be the Star Wars questions,
But
but
there are always going to be trolls that are just because he did The Last Jedi. They're not going to see what he has to offer.
no, of course not. They're not going to let that go because that was something, for lack of a better term, they took personally. I don't want to say they really did take it personal, but they're taking it to the point like they should have taken it personally, and it wasn't even like that. Everybody has things that they probably wish they could sweep under a rug or, never look back at and go, ooh. But at the end of the day, that doesn't define who they are.
No, it doesn't. But again, some people are just going to be fixated on the mixed results from The Last Jedi and are going to go and hold against Rian Johnson now and even going forward if and when he does this trilogy of his in the Star Wars universe. I mean, if you've even heard the past shows with Pop Culture Cosmos, PCC Multiverse, even when I've described it when talking with Josh, I'd be like, or the way I say it with a note of disdain or anything like that. I am not the most confident of individuals when it comes to what he will do in the Star Wars universe. But I don't want that to detract from his skill as a director, because it's obvious with the very strong acclaim for this movie that I think he's going to go ahead and prove to everybody out there that he got the Star Wars gig in the first place, and that's by being a good director. So it's going to be hopefully something that will go out there and remind people that he is a good director and that his work, regardless of whether it's in or out of the Star Wars universe, should at least deserve a chance to be seen. So I'm hoping for that anyway. So it looks like it's going to be a good weekend at the box office. I think after everybody goes shopping a little bit or whatnot, it's still a great weekend to go catch a movie at the theaters. And I think everybody will be going to see Frozen 2 for the family side. But for something a little different out of the norm, I think Knives Out should be the one that people should go ahead and see.
Couldn't agree with you more. Definitely, if you're not seeing Frozen 2, or even if you are, make it a double feature day. Go see Knives Out as well. If you were into whodunits, I always loved them.
Without the kids, though. Without the kids,
Oh, yeah, don't take the kids for that one.
Yeah, that'd be not good.
Adult-wise, you go see the double feature.
Yeah,
the kids are at home doing all the dishes.
Yeah, well, yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice?
Wishful thinking.
Pardon?
I said wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking, indeed. What are your thoughts out there on Knives Out? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think this is a redemption in a way for Rian Johnson, or did you like The Last Jedi? I mean, because a lot of people have found it so divisive, either love it or hate it when it concerns The Last Jedi. Is this a chance for him to go ahead and prove out there once again that he is a good director, worthy of a lot of good projects out there in Hollywood? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, speaking of games, as I said, Game Source, but just before we hit the break, I want to ask you, my friend, we're going to be talking. I'm going to be in the next 5-6 weeks or so talking to a lot of individuals out there about what pop culture products, what pop culture events, what pop culture icon material, what IPs, anything that hit them in regards to pop culture, what affected them most in the decade. And since you are a man in the know when it comes to video games, plus you're one of my longest running friends that's still stuck around me after all these years, and I feel so sorry for you for doing that. But after all these years, my friend, I thought I'd give you first up on your thoughts on the best video games of the decade. And like I said, take your time. It's the list that we're going to be going over. I'm going to share my thoughts on your list as well. So I want to hear your thoughts, my friend, on on what Jamie Monroy thinks of the best video games of this decade.
He doesn't like putting me on the spot. He thanks me for being his friend after all this time. But then what does he do? Puts me on the spot.
Exactly. Oh, excuse me while I drop my mic.
Right? He deserves it on this one, as usual. He thinks he's got me. But once again, I'm going to come with a cleanup hit.
Oh, there you go. Well, I know you've got a great list, so I want to go ahead and see if I can interject or throw a little
We,
bit of confetti on your thing, or do I throw a little bit of dirt on your choices as well?
you
So,
feel absolutely free to do whatever you feel necessary.
all right, so lay it on me, man. I don't have any.
But you
I don't
asked
have it.
me
So
for
I
games of the decade, so I figured since we're doing decades, I'd figure I'd do a top 10 decade.
well, no, it's the games of this decade since we're
Right,
coming out.
right.
So yeah,
This
so it's
decade.
so this decade. So yeah,
I can
the
get 10
best.
in this decade.
Okay, so yeah,
As
because we're
scary as
sticking to
that
this decade
sounds.
because the decade's coming to the close. So
Absolutely.
all right, so go for it, my friend. What are your choices for the best video games of this decade?
So in at my number 10 for this decade is, of course, Destiny. It's where it all started. I can't say where it's gone. I cannot say where it's gone, okay?
All right, I'm going to tell you right now. That's no.
It's at the bottom. It's at the bottom. There's a reason. It's at the bottom.
I'll tell
But
you what, my
interject.
friend. You were the most in on it when they had that demo. I could tell right already that you were the most sold by it, and obviously with the pedigree of Bungie and the stuff that they did before previously with the Halo series. I understand that they came with a great pedigree. You had Activision behind them. You had all this hype. You had all this really just anticipation. Millions of people played the beta, and I think there was a great anticipation for the game. And then the game came out, and it was, okay. But you said it really built upon that afterwards with a lot of great DLC and a lot of great world building after the initial response of what Destiny was all about.
Does tend to. I can't say where it's gone now, okay? Just we're not talking about Destiny 2, we're talking about the original. Because where it's gone now, we won't go there. So, but I mean, it can't take away the fact of what it garnered when it first was in its infancy. Was it a lot of hype when you look back at it now? Absolutely. I put a lot of trust in something because of who was involved with it. As you said, I was very on that boat when it was there. Well, next would be a game that I don't know if you're going to be able to poke as many holes in, my friend, but I'm sure you'll find a way. Overwatch.
Overwatch is something that was kind of when it was first announced, I think a lot of people just thought, okay, Blizzard making a first-person shooter multiplayer action game, multiplayer centric game. Wow, I thought that's a little bit different. I think a lot of people were underestimating what Blizzard could do, and I think with Overwatch they surprised a lot of people out there. Strong reviews. A lot of people have embraced the community. I know with Overwatch 2 on the way, I think it's something that they feel overall has been a good success. I don't think it's been a great overwhelming success. It has not been what World of Warcraft or maybe Diablo or some of their top tier things have done. Top tier IPs have been, but this is something that is done very good. It's been able to go ahead and been ported on so many different platforms now, so it does have its audience. And I agree with you. It's been a very solidly rated game, and I think there's a good future. Not a great future, but I think there's a very good future going forward because they're in the same space with Apex Legends, Fortnite, and so many other Call of Duty and so many other shooters of that ilk that it's really going to be hard for them to stand out, to be in the mix because they're with it's a Blizzard game. That's not a problem. To have them really stand out continuously with Overwatch 2, that I think will be the issue going forward. But I want to hear your thoughts of what made Overwatch endear to you, because I've heard it before from Jay Bartlett. He really was psyched out about it. He enjoyed it. He watched the Overwatch League. But I want to hear from you, my friend. What endeared you to put Overwatch on this, and what kind of impression did it make on you?
What endeared me most for Overwatch was the fact that it was something different, something that we didn't know what was coming. It's like you said, everyone's basing it all off of, wait a minute, they make StarCraft, they make World of Warcraft. What are they coming up? Where's this coming from? How far into left field did they go with this one? And it was great. I was a small tad bit disappointed because I was a little more hyped up thinking there would be more of a story, and we didn't get that. And I think they're going to make up with that on this, next iteration with Overwatch 2. I think we're totally going to get a make up for not having the story that we wanted to begin with. but eventually it didn't take away from the game. The game came in so competitively, pun intended, it took over competitive esports for a solid while. But you also can't discount that, I know what you were saying. It's just going to get caught in the shuffle with everything else. But look at Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike has gotten caught in that same exact shuffle, and it still survives to this day. And that's a game that a lot of people would say is so outdated it shouldn't be, but it absolutely holds its own.
That it does, my friend. I mean, still people are playing it. There's still competitions. There's still streaming all over the internet, and there's still a lot of things going on when it comes to Counter-Strike. So I could see it have an extended life. I just don't see the same kind of fervor for it, even when Overwatch 2 comes out. I mean, there's going to be initial boon as far as people going at it, but I don't see it ever hitting the peak of what Fortnite has, Call of Duty has. I see it being in that second tier. And if Blizzard is okay with that, it can make a nice chunk of change with the microtransactions and all that for many years to come, because it caters to those microtransactions as far as the cosmetics, and people really get into that part of the equation. And for that, I can understand, because I'm me, I'm a big opponent of microtransactions. I don't like them, can't stand them. If it's not a paid DLC where it's like you're getting a whole bunch of things into one, like for instance, when Bethesda used to do with some of the Elder Scrolls stuff, to me, it's really hard just to go ahead and, I'm going to fork over $2 here, $3 here, $2 here, $1 here, $4 here. I understand why people do it in Overwatch, because the customization is something that when you become part of that community in Overwatch, I think a lot of people go ahead and just get involved with it, and that's how they can go ahead and show their love and appreciation. And there seems to be more positive vibe when you play Overwatch and play within the Overwatch community. I get that. So that's one of the few occasions where I think it's okay to have that type of microtransaction community, because I don't think it's really hurting anyone. It's really hurting the game, or it's given anyone a tactical advantage.
I agree. I'll cross the board because I do not like microtransactions at all, which is probably one reason I'm not a diehard Overwatch person like other people, but I still enjoy it for what it's worth. Next going down the list would be God of War. That was fairly recent, I know, but I think we're looking at like 2018 for when the game launched.
But still, it is one of the best games of that year. And in fact, one of the best narratives of the decade. I couldn't agree with you more. Just the story of where it went with Kratos and his son and all that. I couldn't agree with you more on that, like I said. And the fact is that Sony took this IP and took it from one extreme to another. I think it's to be complimented. They took a big risk, because so many people were familiar with, I'm Kratos, I'm mad at everyone, I'm mad at and just going ahead hacking and slashing and hacking and slashing. And, it was just mindless pretty much for the most part. And you would just worry about chaining your combos, and that's it. And then you completely took it into a deep left turn. And you brought it out in a time where single player narratives were a little bit in question, because the fact that EA and some other companies were very adamant about their disdain for single player narratives, because you can't slap a whole bunch of microtransactions. You can't slap a whole bunch of other DLC or other things that you can throw on other games that allow for more. So I think a lot of people in the industry were getting kind of worried that single player narratives were going to become passe. But with God of War and some other games like that, like Horizon Zero Dawn and some others, you really got a boost of needed energy in the single player narrative format. So I can't agree with you more that God of War should be on this list, and will be on a lot of people's lists out there as far as the best video games of this decade.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be story driven. Regardless of it, some people, it did deviate away from its roots, but that was also one of the best parts of it. It gave it a fresh new vigor and fresh new life, and I enjoyed it, still enjoy it to this day, and that's why it's on the list. But where I'm going to go next would be The Last of Us.
Okay, The Last of Us, obviously, from the folks in Naughty Dog. if you're a big fan of the Uncharted series and the way it told its narratives, this this game, when it came out, really, even if you didn't like the Uncharted series, a lot of people who didn't like the Uncharted series liked this game for what it did, and it redefined the zombie genre, even though you can't call them zombies. The undead genre, let's put it that way. How about that? The undead genre, I think it redefined as far as, once again, a great narrative, single person storytelling mode that just a storytelling game that really just grabs you and hooks you in for a nice 30 to 40 hour adventure that I think a lot of people are kind of disappointed that there's still a little bit of delays here and there with The Last of Us 2, because they really are excited because of what happened with The Last of Us. And you see the imprint on it today. I mean, this past weekend, what was one of the games that was packed in with the PlayStation 4? The revamped version of The Last of Us. So Sony has so much confidence in this series now, because with Naughty Dog, and they've just done such a great job with the Uncharted series, but they've done they've done just as good a job as far as telling a narrative with The Last of Us. And I can't agree with you more. This is a great game. It was very high up the year it came out on the list of on everyone's list as far as best games of the year. So yeah, definitely a great choice as far as your best video games of the decade.
And obviously, you said this one already. You touched on it in the game before this one, but Horizon Zero Dawn, of course. Only because it was put out so close within the blast radius and everything of Breath of the Wild that you would have thought that it just got swamped over by all the popularity and hype from Breath of the Wild. But it didn't. It held its own. It became a classic, in my opinion, because that game was easily one, breathtaking to just see, let alone be playing through. But just the visuals alone were jaw-dropping.
Absolutely. A great game, very solid, and actually quite a bit of a surprise when it came out as well. I noticed the narrative there. 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 games published by Sony in a time, in an era in the past few years where a lot of other publishers have decided to go ahead and steer away from the single player narrative. Again, focusing on those microtransaction, multiplaying centric formats, which is fine for a lot of people out there, and they're very popular, and I get that, and I understand that, and I play them myself. But I'll tell you what, my friend, it's great to see that even in an era where it's shifting away from a certain type of narrative, that there's still these type of games that could go ahead and affect an audience in a positive manner. We're seeing it today. We're seeing it even today with the release of games like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which you are streaming constantly on all the sites that you do, including Game Source on YouTube. So it's great to see the single player narrative games still having a place in gamers' homes, especially the ones that Sony has produced. And I know we get on Sony's case a lot for a lot of the decisions that they make, but you know what? With God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, and The Last of Us, they've done a great job of producing these type of games. So commend them on that for having the guts to go ahead and publish all these games, which looks like there's going to be more iterations in all those series to come going forward.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. I mean, obviously everything is about the multiplayer aspect nowadays, and it's like you just said, to see single player campaigns getting the appreciation from not only the designers but the development companies and what have you, down to the customer, is just, that's great. And that leads me into my next game, The Witcher 3.
There you go. I see a trend forming with you, my friend, and it looks like you have very similar tastes to what I do with games that you want to delve into and get lost in. I do like multiplayer-centric formatted games, but for me, a single-player narrative game that's that you can just go ahead and get lost in the world. That telling you, I tell you, it's I cannot just agree with you more with some of these choices. So really, Witcher 3, what can I say? That was even a bigger surprise coming out of left field, the way it took over the industry at the time it came out, and you still see the effects of it today. I know a lot of people are looking forward to a new iteration in the Witcher series. I know a lot of people looking forward to The Witcher on Netflix, and I
Absolutely.
definitely know that they're looking forward to the creators' next game, the Witcher 3's creators' next game, and that would be Cyberpunk 2077. So yeah, Witcher 3, another excellent choice.
I mean, you're on the right track. I'm on that hype train of, I guess, of, I want to get lost when I play a game, and I want to play for hours at end. I want to get lost and forget about everything else. That's the reason I'm usually playing, is to leave the other stuff behind for a while. And you could do that with the multiplayer aspect. But for me, if I'm jumping into a game like, say, Fortnite, something like that, that's just usually a quick fix for, like, boom, boom, just get it done, get it over with, I'm done. But I want that long term aspect. And the replayability. There's a lot of replayability to these single player games.
There is, my friend, and I enjoy it so much as well. And so, any more games on your list, my friend?
There actually is one that I know you're going to have dear and dear to your heart. I mean, you're already kind of spoiling it for me, but I'm looking at Mass Effect 2.
No, Mass Effect 2 came out before 2010.
2010, actually. Just made the cutoff.
Oh, that's right. That is right. Because I thought it was 2009, but you were right. Mass Effect 2, 2010. That's right. Yep, yep. It just barely makes the list.
Squeaked
Nice.
it in there.
There you go. Very, very nice. So tell us why you like Mass Effect 2. I can already tell you already it's the best of the series, and it's one of the best space
Absolutely.
operas I've ever played in my life.
That was it. You sold it for me. You sold that game for me and that series so much that it now has, one, that place on the list, and the infinity in my heart. You did it for me, so of course that had to be there.
Of course, Mass Effect Andromeda, try as it did, it can't shake out the bad feelings. Can't shake out the good memories that you have of Mass Effect 2. And somewhere Shepard is smiling at the decision made. And you're right, it barely snuck it in because it came out in late January of 2010. So it qualifies on this list. And if people are out there, be checking for it because it should appear on a lot of best video games of the decades list over the next month or so. So I'm looking forward to seeing that because people are going to say, well, it came out. Did it? Oh, yeah, it did, just like I did. So Mass Effect for me was a great experience in 2007, but it was even better with Mass Effect 2, one of the greatest video games of all time.
Like I said, you did it for me. That's why it had to be on the list. That pushed me into loving Mass Effect.
There you go, my friend. So, all right, that's been a great list so far. I cannot thank you enough for providing all these great games and your best video games of the decade. Any more thoughts on the best video games of the decade?
I mean, I could have snuck two more in,
Oh,
which
well,
would be quite
what are
scary.
your honorary mentions? So, what are your honorary mentions?
Let's do three honorary mentions. First, Fortnite. Of course, you can't have a decade list without talking about Fortnite. Love it or hate it, we all know we've played it at least once, and for some reason, it's still going. Obviously, all those 12-year-old kids out there, they're spending thousands of dollars on their parents' credit cards. But
Not mine, thankfully.
no, mine either. Now, honestly, here's where it's gonna get funny, because I could have thrown in Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2.
Red Dead Redemption 2, I wouldn't be surprised to see that on a lot of lists. Red Dead Redemption, I think people forget about that game, but it's still, I played through it, I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a great narrative as well. The side things he had to do was kind of tedious, so I wasn't exactly great with that. Watching cattle all night wasn't exactly the most wonderful thing in the world to do, and some other things. But the actual story of John Marston was really something to behold, and I think Rockstar nailed it. And I think that's their best narrative ever was the original Red Dead Redemption. Better than GTA's, better than RDR2. Though RDR2 as a complete experience, I think makes the game a little bit better than RDR. But overall, you can't fault either one with RDR and RDR2.
That's why they're honorable mentions. I just thought it was funny that they could fall into that same decade and for totally separate reasons.
Absolutely, my friend. So that's a great list indeed. What are your thoughts out there on Jamie Monroy's list of the best video games of the decade? We'd love to hear your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, coming up next, the guys from Topicocalypse are back. They're going to be talking about a lot of great things that are going on in the Star Wars universe. And then right after that, Jamie Monroy is going to be sharing his list of the sharing his favorite list of the top movies that he's seen. Speaking of lists, of the top movies that he's seen ever, his favorite movies are coming up later in the program. Plus, also as well, speaking of Star Wars, how much would you pay for a Star Wars script on eBay? We'll tell you. We'll tell you about the interesting story coming up. We'll tell you about that interesting story coming up later in the broadcast as well. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is PCC Multiverse. If you need a listing where we're at, because we're being played all around the world, 7 days a week on radio stations worldwide, check us out. Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, where you see a listing of our many of over 30 different podcast options as well. Jamie, I know you got a great thing going on with all the stuff that you're doing and all the stuff you're streaming on Game Source. So tell us what's coming up for you with streaming on Game Source or any one of the other great channels that you do.
All right, now you can find me mostly on lurking around Game Source's YouTube. I like hanging out there these days. It's kind of fun to show off of what's going on over in Game Source's world, which is a lot of what's going on in Cal's world. I don't know if you're all familiar out there, but Star Wars Fallen Order has come out, and I'm trying to take you on a step, here and there through Cal's adventures. What I've played through the story is exactly what you're going to see played through. I have not advanced any further than what you see. So what I show you, you're getting it just as I'm getting it, and I want you to react just as I react. If you see something and you have a question, let us know. Gerald's told you every way possible to get a hold of us, and then some. And if you stick around for the rest of the podcast, I'm sure you'll hear some more. But yeah, just mostly working on Cal's story.
Absolutely. And plus also there are recent videos up there from Jamie playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Fortnite as well. So check out the action today, Game Source on YouTube. And also I want to give a big thank you before we go into your movie list, my friend. I also want to give a humongous thank you to Bill Leonard, to Bill L, who sent in an email, his top list of his 10 favorite movies of all time. That's going to be part of a great list that we're compiling that we're going to announce in January, both on our popculturecosmos.wordpress.com site and, of course, right here on our Pop Culture Cosmos and PCC Multiverse shows. If you want in on the list, because we're going to compile a big list of either top 100, top 200, depending on how many lists we get in, you want to go ahead and send it to us either on popculturecosmos@yahoo.com or any one of our social medias on Game Source, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, Topicocalypse, The Lakers Fast Break, or Inside Sports Fantasy Football. You can go ahead and send it to us on any one of those outlets. I'll get a hold of it. Josh will get a hold of it. And as we compile this big list, we'll let you know in the month of January exactly where everything stands in your favorite movies of all time. Speaking of that, you have your list ready on your top 10 favorite movies of all time. So before we head on out, my friend, I got to hear your top 10 movies of all time. If it's anything like your video game list, man, I'm all ears, man. I'm all ears.
See, again, he's putting me on the spot, everybody, and I don't know if I can live up to either one of these lists. But I'm going to give it a shot. So, we kind of touched on it when we were going off the air talking about where we were going. And, obviously I made the Godfather pun. You can't have any kind of list for a movie without having the Godfather somewhere on that list. So, obviously the Godfather. And not branching out too much further from that, my boy Al Pacino, gotta love Scarface. It was a timeless. Why, I don't know. Maybe the whole Rocky effect, a guy who could barely speak English. Just kidding. It was a joke. But, Scarface, I loved it. I still love it to this day. Just saw that it came out in 4K and was like, oh my gosh, do I buy it for the, fifth, sixth time? I think I went from beta, now 4K. Ooh, beta. I said beta. That was scary.
You're dating yourself there, man, my friends.
I'm scared. The kids have no idea what I'm talking about. They're like, beta what? What he got into a beta for what game?
What's an audio tape?
Right. But the Untouchables. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely on there. It a little bit of a
That's the
mobster,
Chicago way. That's
little
the
bit of a
Chicago way.
mobster gangster trend thing going on. But those, I don't know. Those movies had the most interesting stories for me. I mean, I could list off 1,000 movies, but there's movies that were somewhat influential like that. Um, whew, do I go into like say classics like Reservoir Dogs, things like that? Pulp Fiction, those were great movies in my opinion. Uh, Kill Bill, come on, who doesn't like Kill Bill? Geesh.
Volume 1 or Volume 2?
Oh man, Volume
Because
One.
you can't treat it as a whole film. I know Tarantino
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
I know he did splice it together and showed off in his theater, but no, right now technically it's two films.
that's
So
true.
which one?
Volume One, Volume One.
Okay,
I'll go with
okay.
that.
So that's
He
6
called.
for you. That's 6.
Oh man, you really. This was rough because there's so many, but I'm gonna go with Star Wars: A New Hope.
That's
That
number
did a lot for
7.
me, considering it came out before I was even born, and I still saw that movie as if it was super influential and had no idea what I was talking about because I was like, what, a child? Um, do I say Blade Runner? I do. I say Blade Runner.
Which
I
one?
do. Oh, the original because it's the one I knew.
Okay.
I'll say original because it's the one I knew.
Okay.
Um, the original Fast and the Furious is hard as that is for me to say. That was when the franchise was about the cars. So I have to put that there.
So that's 9 for you, my friend. 9 great movies there on that list. Now you need one more. I know the cutting list was. I know a lot of movies left on your cutting room floor, so to speak, to use a Hollywood pun.
Oh, I'm
But
sure 90% of them are Marvel movies too.
yes, exactly. So got 9 down. One more to go.
Avengers Endgame, of course. That movie brought
Wow.
me to tears.
Well, I'll tell you what. You were probably the highest of any of us as far as Avengers Endgame when we did our Avengers Endgame spoiler cast, which is one of our most listened to podcasts. And thank you very much if you took the time for listening to it. You think you were higher than anybody else. So that is a great list, my friend. I think a lot of people would have no issues with what your thoughts are on there. I think a lot of movies that are going to be very high up on this list are contained within your 10. So I truly appreciate you taking the time for going ahead and compiling that list. And again, if you want to be a part of this list, just go ahead and send your 10 choices of your top 10 movies of all time into us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos or any one of our affiliate shows and social media outlets.
It's harder than he makes it sound, everybody. There's so many things on the cutting room floor.
There is, but you know what? We got to go ahead and make a list somehow because it seems to be enjoyable. A lot of people got a kick out of our top 200 video games, so I like to do something comparable when it comes to movies as well. All right, my friend, it's been a great episode. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to speaking to me today. I also want to thank the guys from Topicocalypse for talking some Star Wars. But before we head on out, Star Wars is again going to be closed out on our list because Star Wars Episode 9 is just coming out in December, but a script managed to go ahead and leak out into the wild. Somebody left it, I guess, in a hotel room, left it on the floor, I think underneath their bed or
Under the
something.
bed, yeah.
Yeah, and then they just as they left, they won't say which actor, but J.J. Abrams knows which actor it is, but he won't say it on
And
the
he
air.
really, really wanted to say who it was, though.
He did. He did. He wanted to call that person out, but he didn't. So it was found by a maid who gave it to somebody else to go ahead and sell it on eBay. And I think it got bought by someone who works within the frameworks of Disney. And it got sent back to Lucasfilm, aka JJ. So it's now in safe hands without getting out there too much. So it's kind of interesting how all this could have taken place and all this stuff could have been leaked out on the internet and all that. And unfortunately, by the hair of their chinny chin chin, didn't get anything out as of yet when it comes to Star Wars Episode 9, which is kind of funny because, as you know, Disney with Marvel and now Star Wars, in fact, Kerry Russell, who plays a role in the latest Episode 9, she talked about having to read her parts, which were only her parts by themselves and not anybody else relating to any other scenes or anything that she's not involved in. But she had to read them under lock and key in a room with a security buyer. So to tell you the idea how serious they are and to let that one script go was just mind-boggling. But I want to ask you, my friend, let's say you had that unlimited gold credit card right there. Okay, for just a second.
So you're talking I have Tony Stark money.
Yes, you have Tony Stark money. So
Got
I want
it.
to ask you this. How much would you pay for a script of Episode 9 on eBay?
Oh, that depends on how much that maid was asking. I mean, realistically, would you, if you had the expendable money, and that's why I said Tony Stark money, because this guy had expendable money to just spend on whatever he wanted, it seems. I'd spend whatever it took. Here's the kicker to me, though, about all that whole situation. Is it convenient to anyone else that a Disney employee just so happened to be looking on eBay and found this in the exact moment to save this whole thing as a whole?
I don't think it was coincidence.
Right.
Well, I'm sure the person that lost it reported it lost. And so Disney had certain individuals scouting out there, on the dark web, and in this case, on the regular web, to go ahead and be ready to go ahead and snag that out there. So, but for me, I think I would have paid. I think I probably would have paid up to $1 million. If I had. I think so.
$1 million sounds like a nice number.
Million, because I would have been able to hopefully translate that out to see if I can sell that off for whatever's going on within. Sell the secrets out there. Little by little, hopefully getting.
That's when you find out if the mouse really values its property.
Yeah, something like that, or sell it out to various media outlets. I say, okay, CBS, CBS, TMZ, somebody out there. You really want it? I'm gonna throw this secret out at you, but it's gonna be a chunk of change, my friend.
You could sell your story to ABC and all that stuff. They could bank you out of an episode of What Would You Do?
Exactly. So there you go, my friend. Well, you can't do ABC because ABC would want to go ahead and get the whole thing back, and it would, since it's all tie-in.
Oh, that's true. Bummer.
Yeah, not to ABC. You can't.
No, bad idea.
Not to ABC or FX or anything like that. Freeform or whatnot. Just TMZ. Sell it to TMZ.
They're just going to say we have to go to Fox. So
there you go. Oh, that would be ironic indeed. What are your thoughts out there on the Star Wars Episode 9 script leaking out there, and what would you pay for it on eBay if you had the chance? Share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, thank you so much for taking the time, for speaking to me today, and for being a part of the show. I cannot wait to have you back on once again in the near future. I'm looking forward to all the great things that you're providing us here at Game Source Pop Culture Cosmos, not only here in 2019, but going forward into the next decade. So, any last thoughts on the way out, my friend?
It's been a pleasure. I just hope Josh is having a great time with the family. Deserves it. And I can't wait to be back. So,
all right.
Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I mean, we've been doing this for a while, my friend, since, 2011?
Yeah, I could have put us in that decade if we were only a game.
It just makes me even older as I say those words. So for Jamie Monroy, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great